Welcome to Grow For It. I'm Jim, and I want to thank you for deciding to invest your valuable time in this podcast. It's the first episode, so you're bound to be asking, hey, what's in it for me? For you sales professionals out there, yep, that's the WIIFM. This podcast is going to deal with your mindset, your focus. Over time, we'll discuss key activities and decide if those are activities that are actually in alignment with your overall vision for your business, your career, and maybe even your life. Most importantly, I'm going to challenge you to think differently about what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you're a small business owner, a manager, or even just a professional trying to achieve more, you're in the right spot. I'm a small business consultant. I've worked with professionals for over 12 years. During that time, I've given tons of seminars, spoken at national sales meetings, been featured on a few national webinars, and written business articles for multiple publications. But it hit me. Most of you out there probably have never heard of me because you're not in those organizations or working in those industry segments. So I decided to change it up. Just like you, I'm ready to grow for it. Let's jump into today's episode. Have you ever heard of stories of large companies bringing in big consulting firms and paying them a lot of money to produce giant binders full of information? Maybe some businesses need that validation. It's kind of like when you finished that midnight term paper in college, you printed it out and said, yeah, that feels like an A paper. See, I believe most companies simply can't afford to hire those big firms. I think there's another solution. Most of the business owners I work with need to be more effective at defining the issues and opportunities, as well as developing a plan for implementation. I think a lot of great ideas actually die in those binders and on the backs of napkins. That's why I have a much more tactical approach. Sure, we can get into all sorts of charts and graphs and academic theory, all the while trying to eliminate 98 or 99% of the risk. What they end up accomplishing is paralysis by analysis. Some of them never end up actually pulling the trigger. But I really think that what most of my clients want is help moving the ball down the field so we can actually put some points on the board. If we do that consistently, because we're thinking differently and acting more quickly, we're going to win. That's exactly what I do with and for my clients. Quite often, it comes down to challenging the status quo mindset. Let me tell you a quick story as an example. Years ago, I had an initial conversation with an attorney. I used to work exclusively in the legal industry. Today, I still work with quite a few law firms, but I have a lot of other business clients as well. During our conversation, the attorney described himself as the DUI king of the city. So I asked him, okay, how does that happen? He went on to explain that early in his career, he took on several drunk driving cases. He did all right, so his colleagues referred other cases to him. Those clients began talking about the results, and before he knew it, he started getting inundated with DUI cases. As a follow-up, I asked him a series of questions. Did he make it through 3 years of law school to focus on DUI law? Did he study several months and then sit for the bar exam to practice DUIs? Did he actually hang out a shingle and put up with all the stress and headaches of running a law firm just to handle DUI cases? He sat back in his chair and laughed. He looked at me and said, actually, no. What I really wanted to do was to get into federal criminal litigation. I wanted to work with highly complex cases with a ton of moving parts. Sounds like you missed the mark, doesn't it? Let's step back and take a look at what actually happened. It sounds like his day-to-day activities resulted in a lack of alignment with his overall vision. In fact, in his case, it may have resulted in his abandoning the vision altogether. You see, friends, I think that's a risk for all of us. If we're not careful, we could quickly end up in the same situation. That's the difference between existing versus thriving. Existing is when we're just getting by, paying the bills and maybe even putting a little money in our pockets at the end of the month. But when you're thriving, that's an entirely different story. That's when you feel your swagger. That's when things are popping. You're not just putting a little money in your pocket, you're putting a lot of it there. Isn't that where we'd all like to be? I'm going to challenge you to answer an important question. And I really don't like this phrase, but it's appropriate. So here it is. Are you in your zone? If you answered yes, what are you going to do to stay there? Because the market's going to change, client demands are going to grow, competition's going to get smarter, and you're going to be forced to adapt. If you answered no, would you like to find your path leading back to your zone? That's why I think it's so important to make sure your day-to-day activities, your D2D activities, are closely aligned with your vision. We need to explore and understand the importance of a laser-like focus on your vision. It taps into that primal instinct, that drive, allowing and enabling you to excel and achieve. Quite honestly, I think that's a step many professionals and managers, even small business owners, are tempted to skip. It takes time to think through that process. It takes time to boil it down and refine it. It takes a lot of our most precious asset, our time. But it's critical to your long-term success. When your day-to-day activities, your D2D activities, are closely aligned with your overall vision, there's an inherent rhythm, a natural cadence. You know why you're taking on a specific task, getting involved with a certain project, and pursuing or working with a particular group of clients. Yeah, it feeds the family, but more importantly, aligning the D2D activities with the vision feeds the soul. That's what each of us should be aiming for. That flow is what enables us to be optimally effective. We feel it, clients sense it, and our colleagues can actually tap into it. But what happens when we miss the mark, when our actions are not aligned with our vision? We've all experienced it at one time or another. It's what I call the Sisyphus effect. If you've ever read mythology, there's a story about a guy named Sisyphus. Through a series of events, he was sentenced by the gods to spend eternity pushing a giant boulder up a steep hill. Each morning, Sisyphus would crouch down, grab a hold of the rock, and begin straining to roll it up the hill. His feet constantly slipped in the soft clay. His legs and his arms cramped under the immense weight. Sweat poured down his face and his back. His cheeks and shoulders were scraped up as they pressed against the huge stone. After an incredible struggle, he finally reaches the top of the hill, only to watch as the boulder rolled back down and crashed down to the bottom. Sisyphus slowly walked back down the muddy hill and began the struggle again. This was his sentence for the rest of eternity. Have you ever felt that way? That's the pressure you feel when you're struggling to deliver, but you know you're not doing what you instinctively think you should be doing. That's why I call it the Sisyphus effect. When your day-to-day actions don't align with your vision, you won't achieve your success, regardless of how hard you strain under your own boulder. You want to achieve at a higher level? It's possible. It doesn't matter if you're thinking about your organization, your department, or even your own budget targets. Begin by narrowly defining your vision. Then, carefully work backwards to understand exactly the activities you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis to get there. I want you to take out a piece of paper. In the top center, write a capital V as in Victor. A little bit further down the page, in the right margin, write a capital D as in Delta. Directly across from that, in the left margin, write a capital A as in Alpha. Now, connect the three letters with curved arrows in a clockwise fashion. What does that represent? It's an important concept. Vision feeds the desire. Desire drives the activities. Activities lead to your progress in the pursuit of your vision. It's all interrelated. To be successful, it has to be, doesn't it? Again, the goal of this podcast is to help you constantly assess the why behind what you're doing today and what you should be doing tomorrow. This is about a process, an evolution. It's about your growth in both professional and personal terms. If you're ready for that, then I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast and join me. I'm Jim Ray, and if you're ready, let's grow for it. Thanks for taking a few minutes to join me today. I'll be back with the next episode soon. In the meantime, feel free to visit jimrayconsultingservices.com. I'd appreciate it if you'd consider liking my business Facebook page. It's going to be an exciting journey. I'm glad we get the opportunity to walk together. Here's to your success.